We got interrupted with our interview yesterday. You were just about to tell me a bit about your talks. You've got a couple of talks here at the conference, and I just asked you the GRRRR question. So yeah, tell us about the GRRRR talk.
Yeah, I'm doing a talk this afternoon with Keir Harding. I can't forget the exact title, but it's something like My Anger is Now Valid or something like that. And it's basically about the experiences from a clinical point of view and a lived experience point of view of diagnosis of BPD being changed to diagnosis of CPTSD and what the impact of that is, what that means. Yeah, exploring that subject from both sides of the fence.
And Keir's going to give the kind of professional perspective and you're going to give the lived experience perspective. So just tell us a bit about that, what your story of diagnosis and the kind of labels and how that made you feel, I suppose.
Yeah, so I'm someone that's had the BPD diagnosis for a very long time. Initially, I agreed with that diagnosis. It was a bit of a relief, I guess, that I wasn't just mad or whatever. But over the years, that's had a massive impact in my life. It's closed a lot of doors. It's affected how I've been treated in services. It's stopped me getting the treatment that I actually needed for my PTSD, my trauma, my eating disorder. And so having the diagnosis changed was a big deal in terms of that. Actually, now I'm finding that I'm being treated more appropriately for what is actually going on for me. However, it wasn't just that straightforward. It's had quite a lot of impact. Do I acknowledge that diagnosis was there with me for 10 years? Like, it had an impact in my life. Like, I can't, it can't not exist, even though it's not written on my notes anymore. It still had a massive impact in my life. So that's been quite a complicated thing to process, almost a grieving process. That's something that I'm talking about, that the impact and the processing of that diagnosis change and what that means. And I think that's different for everyone. Definitely.
We could talk about that for hours, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting topic, but let's move on so we get everything into time. So you're presenting a poster here as well at the conference. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've got a poster about our lived experience research partnership. So I work in Sheffield Health and Social Care as a lived experience research ambassador, and we have a rapidly growing group of people, all sort of walks of life, all sorts of things that are covered by our trust. So we don't just do mental health. We have brain injury, learning disability, autism, gender identity. So all people with lived experience of these things and an interest in research. Again, we've got a wide variety from people who've just found out research exists. What is it? I want to know more about it, to people who maybe, for example, we've got a woman, she was a senior researcher and unfortunately had an acquired brain injury and is unable to work, but through our lived experience research partnership and other things in the trust to do with research, she's able to use those really valuable skills, but in a way that is suitable in the way things are for her now. So yeah, I've got a poster and we're talking about people's journeys into research and how they got there and the impact that's having. So for example, we have a couple of people who'd been out of work for years and years and got involved and were lived experience research interviewers for us, and have now gone on to do master's degrees and been in employment. And we're losing some of our members, but that's a good thing because they're going on to bigger and better things. So yeah, we just wanted to share what we're doing in an NHS trust, which is more complicated with a lot of barriers in the NHS. But yeah, we just want to share what we're doing.
Amazing. And as if that wasn't enough, you're also doing another talk here at the conference. You're very busy, juggling lots of balls. Yeah, tell us about the final talk.
So it was actually the first talk I did was in the Relational Practice Symposium. So I'm working with Gary Lamb, Rebecca Noland and people like that on defining the term relational practice. So most people in this space understand that the relationships between clinicians and the service users is really important, but that's not a defined term. It's an entity, but what actually is it? What does it mean? What does it look like? So we're looking at that in healthcare services, in the education sector, in the criminal justice sector, in social work, trying to find out what's out there, what the understanding is already, looking at all the literature and pulling that together to create a concept of what this is that we hope will be moving forward to be something that we can get in sort of at an organisational level. At the moment, it's something that's understood on a kind of personal level, on a one-to-one level, but often organisations don't value the impact of relationships on practice. So yeah, it's a really exciting area to be working in at the moment. There's a lot of work going on around that. So it's really nice to see it all being drawn together yesterday in the symposium.
And finally, I want you to just bringing it back to the beginning of this interview where you're talking about your own kind of diagnosis of BPD and that not being a route into help, but actually being something that potentially harms people. I wonder, if you could say something about the basics here. You're talking about relational practice there. You're talking about relationships. We're talking about kindness. We're talking about building trust. How has your own kind of personal journey reflected that? So that's a terrible question. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. So yeah, for me, I guess if I reflect on my journey in the last couple of years compared to the last 2 decades, I'm finding that now I'm able to have a lot stronger relationships, not just in like with clinicians who are involved in my care, but also in my personal life, with friends, with colleagues, with people I go to the gym with, people I skate with. And that's been massive in terms of me regulating and managing what goes on for me day to day. And something that's been huge for me is, for example, I now I've had a care coordinator that's been the same care coordinator for 4 years. Before that, I had 9 in 5 years. And she has shown that she is dependable. She shows up, like she's reliable. I always know how she's going to respond to something, which has not been the case in the past, where I've maybe had to ring up services and not known who's going to answer the phone, how they're going to respond to me, how they're going to judge me. I know she takes me at face value and is just learning more and more. And that's been a massive thing. And then that's also helped advocate like with other people to also be building those relationships with me. So I'm finding that's been a really big turning point for me in the past couple of years. I think how people are relating to me as somebody with these complex mental health issues.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I just wanted to say it's just fantastic to see your kind of growth within BIGSPD over the last few years. I've come to 4 conferences now, and you've got like such an important role now within the organisation. So I just wanted to reflect that back for you.
That's really nice. That's made me feel a little warm and fuzzy. Yeah, I reflect back on my first conference was in 2018, and I really didn't want to come. I actually tried to self-sabotage and not be able to come the night before, but I did. And it was quite a life-changing experience. And now it's really nice to feel so embedded in the conference, and I have a voice and people want to hear it. And I really want to encourage other people with lived experience to give it a shot. There are places that are funded. Come along. There's other ones of us here that know what that's like to come to your first conference and not maybe feel that you should be there, but you should be here. Like, we want to hear from people. So come to BIGSPD.